Greetings, welcome back to Black Bear News, where we are discussing climate change, above climate change, things adjacent. Please remember to like the video and to make sure that you are still subscribed. As the usual onslaught of news. This is from a few weeks ago on January 9th. Red tide in Mexico kills nearly 300 endangered green sea turtles. Red tide event in Mexico has caused the deaths of nearly 300 Pacific green sea turtles. The rescued sea turtles were observed to be having difficulties breathing. Volunteers tried to save some of the animals by wrapping them in towels, wet towels. Green sea turtles are already considered endangered. Very unreported news story, or not very well reported. I have only seen this particular website. So far, 292 sea turtles have died from the algae bloom, and only 27 of the animals have successfully been saved. According to the Environmental Protection Authorities, the autopsies revealed that the turtles had consumed sea saps that possibly had accumulations of algae toxins. This is rather sad news for a species, as it was also only in 2018 when over 300 turtles classified as vulnerable were found dead off the coast of Oaxaca after they got entangled in illegal fishing nets. So the human onslaught of nature continues to have its extremely negative effects. Poor green sea turtles. Which we can put out of our minds as long as everything is fine with us. As soon as things are very not fine with us, then we're going to go, dang, we should have, gave a shit about all the animals we plowed under, cast asunder. More good stuff from George Sacroclides. He's got a couple new articles out. I'm going to try and cover both of them this week, but we'll start with this one, Media Money Machine, Tales of the Anthropocene System. It was the century when Earth's systems got a complete makeover and the planet got an expiration date. It is a word that is still not recognized by the spelling thesaurus, yet we have been living in the Anthropocene for many decades now. The geologic time period, according to the textbooks, when the planet is not governed by physics anymore, broadly speaking. It is not governed by the delicate Goldilocks balance between water, vapor, and ice, which used to only slightly fluctuate every few thousand years. Our atmosphere is not controlled anymore by the most accurate carbon credits accounting system that ever existed, and which is used to balance millions of tons of CO2 emitted from volcanoes and other natural sources on one hand, with plant and animal CO2 absorption on the other. The pattern of our weather, the highs and lows of temperature, precipitation, drought, do not have an upper or lower limit anymore. The lows can go lower and the highs can go higher. Records are being broken everywhere. The machine is fucked. Very appropriate summation of our situation. The Anthropocene is a big lie. Or so they say. Anthropocene in Greek roughly means the geologic time characterized by human influence, which is a lie because influence would imply something deliberate, controlled, and directional. It is too kind towards humanity. The fact of the matter is that humans are not influencing or controlling anything. They simply broke the controls. They are the nagging child in the backseat of the car who kept saying, "Are we there yet? Can we stop for ice cream? Can I pee here?" Except that the driver has long ago been driven mad by the incessant nagging to the point that they have turned suicidal and jumped off the window. There is no steering wheel or driver anymore, just a clueless backseat driver. The term Anthropocene is the exact equivalent to what some economists and financiers call negative growth when they want to refer to an economic recession. The Anthropocene is one of the most glaring examples of human-centric, biased, inappropriate, dogmatic, and misleading terminology specifically invented by cowardly scientists to remove judgment and emotion from a process that is essentially human-made apocalypse. I guess apocalypse is not a very scientific word. It won't get you published in a peer-reviewed journal, but the fact of the matter is that nothing good has emerged from our influence on the planet that would warrant even remotely the use of such a stupid word as Anthropocene. For the purposes of staying relevant, though, I'll continue using it for today. But for reference, the title of this article really is not Tales of the Anthropocene, but Tales of the Apocalypse. It just has a very different ring to it, doesn't it? It still spins. Yet, yes, it still does a few things, this clunky old thing we call Earth. We still have day and night, a tilted axis, a magnetic field. There are still ocean currents and jet streams that move vapor and heat across the globe, even though they are currently being rerouted. Please pardon our appearance while we make some essential maintenance work on the system. The seasons come and go at approximately the same time as before, even though India cannot rely on monsoon rains anymore and parts of Guatemala are becoming unfarmable and uninhabitable. There are still lots of plants and animals, even though they are being destroyed at a rate hundreds of times faster than at any other point in history. There are lots of things which give the impression that the machine isn't broken. And that's why everybody feels like everything's fine. This is great. This is lovely weather today, isn't it? There are lots of things, but is it actually alive anymore? Does it know what it's doing? Is the patient watching TV in their hospital bed giving the appearance that they are actually improving, having the occasional laugh, or are they just a few hours away from death? Straightening the circle, the shift that humans have brought about on this planet was a truly momentous one. If you analyze it scientifically, humans changed how the whole machine works, turning it from a self-sufficient, self-perpetuating one to one that gets closer to death with each breath, each spin around its axis. A self-sufficient machine can live forever. A dysfunctioning one gets rustier and rustier with every spin. Like with smartphones, computers, and other devices that are purposely made to break down after a few years or months, we condemned Earth to obsolescence. To relate this back to physics and chemistry, what has happened was the conversion of Earth's systems from a series of cyclical processes to that of linear ones. Cyclical processes can run forever into infinity like a battery that becomes empty and then recharges. Being a chemist, I am aware of how special cyclical processes are. While linear chemical reactions can take place in a split second, cyclical processes are the definition of immortality and regeneration. Earth was the perfect immortal battery with each cycle, the entire system was returned to its original state. The seasons, the fruit on the trees, the fish in the ocean, it all returned every single year. Oops. Turning a cyclical process into a linear one is much easier than you think, even if you are talking about the whole planet system. The key is to linearize just one of the key processes, in this case CO2 levels. Because everything in a cyclical closed system is interconnected, pretty soon everything is being affected. What is more, everything becomes converted into a linear process. All ice eventually turns into water. Biomass keeps decreasing as rainforest regions. Coral reefs and animals die back permanently due to global warming. Feedback loops like methane, which in a healthy system are normally safety switches that maintain the cyclicality, now become prime enemies. They kick in and accelerate the linear process. All linear processes end once they run out of input, much like a chemical reaction that runs out of substrates. The circle turns into a spiral, which is nothing else but a circle on its way to becoming a line. Too many new shapes, too many to handle. From the original perfect circle of the Earth's immortal natural systems, we have evolved into fake circles. They are loops, spirals, gyres, permanent traps, and cesspools. They all leak, unlike the perfect circle. They leak into each other. Most of all, they leak CO2. Some of them try to imitate the circle, but end up overdoing it, amplifying the process with each round instead of simply regenerating it. These are the notorious feedback loops. Others are static deposits circling in one place like black holes, accumulating material such as plastic or radioactivity that will never be destroyed and will just continue to pile up. From physics to metaphysics to mental physics. But the most important changes that has occurred is that we have moved from biophysical cycles, moving heat, water, and other physical and energy resources around the planet, to new non-physical processes which are now taking over the planet and are completely incompatible with the machine. They move information, misinformation, hate, and digital money. These processes take place not in oceans or the atmosphere, but in our society, in our heads, online, in the stock markets, on Twitter. It is these processes, many of which are feedback loops, see image, which have integrated themselves into the Earth's natural cycles like parasites and are bringing down the whole apparatus. They are the profit loop, the hate cycle, the fake news cesspool, the mind prison, the sleep chamber, the mental health cycle, the global trade loop, the IPCC bullshit echo chamber, the Green New Deal merry-go-round, and many more that feed directly into the Earth's ancient cycles, biomes, and weather systems, parasiting them. The simplistic and incomplete diagram above is enough to illustrate how such seemingly intangible things as inequality, racism, fake news, and mental health actually link directly to CO2 emissions. Through the interconnectedness of the Anthropocene system, they are all connected to the profit cycle, the central piece in the system and the one which makes almost all the other pieces move and accelerate. Think of all these loops as gears in a Swiss watch. They all propel each other. Now think of what happens as the inputs into the system become stronger, more humans, more consumption, therefore more resource exploitation, which means more natural destruction and human exploitation. More inequality and racism that are needed to sustain capitalism, more mental health issues, more trauma, more consumption in order to cope. There's a new machine in town, and this one is determined to commit suicide once it runs out of substrate and stuff to burn. To be continued. Hope you enjoyed that. I really did as well. George Sacroclides has there's a lot of good thoughts on this. So keep it coming, George. I appreciate it. So going back to more coronavirus news, China built a lab to study SARS and Ebola in Wuhan, and U.S. biosafety experts warned in 2017 that a virus could escape the facility that's become key in fighting the outbreak. So there are facilities there. Biosafety Laboratory. The National Biosafety Laboratory is the only lab in China designated for studying dangerous pathogens like SARS and Ebola. Ahead of its January 2018 opening, biosafety experts and scientists from the U.S. expressed concerns that a virus could escape the lab. 2004, a SARS virus leaked from a lab in Beijing. Is that what happened? Oh, really? Is that right? Experts say the coronavirus that infected more than 800 people mutated in animals and became capable of infecting humans at the Wuhan seafood market. But a 2017 article warned of the unpredictability of lab animals that scientists at the Wuhan lab intended to inject with viruses. Whoa. Scientists warned in 2017 that a SARS-like virus could escape a lab set up in the year up that year in Wuhan, China, to study some of the most dangerous pathogens in the world. Now, a SARS-like coronavirus has infected more than 800 there, spread to at least 10 other countries, and killed 25 in Wuhan and nearby provinces. China installed the first, there's one of a planned 5 to 7 biolabs designed for maximum safety in Wuhan in 2017. Maximum safety for the purpose of studying the most high-risk pathogens, including the Ebola, and the SARS virus. So they were studying Ebola there. Interesting, because some of the symptoms that they're describing, the rapid kidney failure, actually sound more like Ebola than SARS. So who knows what's going on? Tim Trevin, a Maryland biosafety consultant, told Nature that year, when the lab was on the cusp of opening, that he worried that China's culture could make the institute unsafe because structures where everyone feels free to speak up and openness of information are important. Yep. When you're afraid to actually say, I messed up, I made a mistake, oops, that's when the big mistakes happen, right? If you're afraid of, heavy penalties, I mean, I guess that can happen in any society, but still, if you're overly afraid of heavy penalties, or if the penalties are real, you're going to be less likely to go, excuse me, had a little accident, whoopsie. Anyways, that is interesting news. Moving on. I'm going to link this video of a young man from China, uploading a video saying, kind of talking about the mess that's happening in Wuhan. This is very heartbreaking and also interesting. An interesting take from someone in Wuhan. I'm not going to play any, but I'll link it. Gonna link again also another video from Chris Martinson, who runs the site Peak Prosperity, and Chris knows a lot about pathogens. So this is a good informational video to listen to check this out. And lastly, I'm going to link this video as well. There was a large explosion in China. Let's watch this. This is in Wuhan. And this, look at this. Wham! Okay, so this supposedly was uploaded 2 days ago. This looks a lot like another explosion that happened a few years ago in a port city in China, that people were speculating about what it was that exploded, was such a large explosion. In fact, there's been numerous accounts of these incredibly large explosions in China over the last 10 years. And there are a lot of speculations over what is actually causing these explosions, where they could come from. Are they coming from? I mean, it runs the gamut from chemical explosion to outer space weapons. So there's a whole lot of theories about what is causing all these explosions. We have to just assume that this is actually from Wuhan and that this actually happened 2 days ago. We have no confirmation of that, but I'll link this if you want to check it out. If anybody has any more confirmation on this, that would be interesting. That's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for your eyes, your ears, and your conscience. If you would like to support this channel, you can do so at the links below. Until next time, peace.